Chapter 6. Why believe in the Kalimah? Brothers in Islam, why should we believe in the Kalimah? What benefits shall accrue to us by it? Let us try to find an answer to this important question. Whatever work we do is done with some purpose or some benefit in view. We never do anything without some objective, goal or need. Why do you drink? Because it quenches your thirst. If you were to discover that drinking water failed to quench your thirst, you will not waste your time doing it the next time you are thirsty. Why do you eat food? Simply because you want to satisfy your hunger and keep your strength to live. If it made no difference whether you ate food or not, you would naturally feel that it was a useless activity. Why do you take medicine when you are ill? Because you want to get rid of your illness and regain your health. But you soon stop taking medicine which do not work. Why do you work so hard cultivating their lands so that crops, fruits and vegetables may be produced? But if nothing grew after you had sown the seeds, you will not again exert yourself to plough the field, to sow the seeds and water the ground. Thus, whatever work you undertake always has an end in view. If the end is achieved, you consider the work fruitful, and if not, you say it was pointless. Success in the hereafter. Bearing this in mind, let us now ask, why should the Kalimah be recited? The obvious answer is to draw a distinction between a kafir and a Muslim. But what is the nature of this distinction? Does it mean that if a kafir has 2 eyes, a Muslim will have 4? Or that if a kafir has 1 head, a Muslim will have 2? You will say no. It does not mean that. It means that there should be a difference between the end result of a Muslim's life and a kafir's life. The end result of a kafir's life is failure. He will be deprived of God's mercy in that world, in the hereafter, and be totally wretched, while that of a Muslim is success. He will win the pleasure of God and be happy and honored there. This world and that world. Your answer is correct, but now tell me, what is the nature of that world? And what is the nature of being a failure in the hereafter? What does it mean to be successful and honored there? We need not delay ourselves working out the answer to the first question, for it has already been given by the Prophet, blessings and peace be on him. This world is the cultivating ground of the hereafter. This world and the hereafter are not 2 separate entities, but a continuous process. This process begins in this world and ends in the hereafter. The relationship between the two is the same as that between cultivation and crop. You plough the land, sow the seeds, irrigate and tend the field till such time as the crop is ready. When you have reaped the harvest, you feed yourself from it throughout the year. You will naturally reap whatever you have sown in the land. If you sow wheat, only wheat will grow. If thorns are sown, only thorns will grow. If nothing is sown, nothing will grow. Whatever mistakes and errors you make in the course of ploughing, sowing, irrigating, and tending your fields, the effect will become apparent at the time of reaping the crop. But you have carried out all the necessary precautions properly, you will get your reward at the time of reaping. This is exactly the position in respect of this world and that world. This world is like ground to be tilled. Man has been sent into this field for the purpose of raising a crop for himself by his own effort and hard work. He has been allotted a specific time, from birth till death, to do this task. Whatever type of crop he sows will be reaped in his life beyond the grave, and that produce will be the mainstay of his life in the hereafter. If you have sown seed, if you have sown good seed in the field of this world throughout your life and have nourished it with water and careful supervision, you will find the fruits of your labors ready in the next life in the shape of bountiful, beautiful gardens. You'll be able to live happily on the fruits of the garden you have cultivated so assiduously throughout your earthly life. You will not need to do any further hard work. This is paradise. This is the success, the state of gratification in the hereafter. In contrast to this, if you sow thorns and grow bitter and poisonous plants during your lives on earth, you will reap a similar crop in the next life. You will not be given a second chance to grow a good crop and will have no choice but to sustain yourself on the bad crop. You have to lie on a bed of thorns which you have nurtured and eat the bitter poisonous fruit you have grown. This is what is meant by being wretched and unsuccessful in the hereafter. Success in that world. The same meaning of the hereafter as I have described is given in the Quran and the Hadith. This shows that the success or failure of a man in the life after death depends on whether his knowledge and action have been correct during his life on earth. From the above, it follows that the difference between Muslim and Kafir in the hereafter is determined by the difference which existed between them in the patterns of their lives on earth. Unless there is a difference between the knowledge and action of a Muslim and a Kafir in this world, there can be no difference between the ultimate states in the hereafter. It is impossible that the knowledge and action of a Muslim be the same as those of a Kafir, without him suffering the fate that is destined for a Kafir. True purpose of the Kalimah. You said earlier that the purpose of reciting the Kalimah was to differentiate between the end results of a Kafir and a Muslim. Now, having discussed further the nature of the end result and of the hereafter, we'll have to rephrase your answer. Now you have to say that the purpose of reciting the Kalimah is to set right men's knowledge and actions here in this world, so that ultimately he attains happiness in that world. This Kalimah teaches us to plant that garden whose fruit we will pick in the hereafter. If we do not believe in the Kalimah, how can we plant the garden from where will we pick its fruit in the hereafter? And if we merely utter the words of the Kalimah without it correcting our knowledge, and if our actions too remain the same as those of Kafir, the result will be the same as if we had not uttered it. Would you then not agree that it is pointless to utter the Kalimah without letting it change our thoughts and deeds? There is no reason why our fates in this case should be different from those of Kafir. We do not put God under any obligation by merely uttering the Kalimah. If we do not learn how to plant a garden and instead sow thorns all our life, we cannot expect to inherit a flourishing garden with fruits in the next world. Several examples are before you to show that it is meaningless to do something if an identical outcome would result if you had done nothing. Medicine is not medicine if a patient's condition remains the same after using it. In the same way, if a Kalimah reciter's knowledge and action remains the same as those of a non-reciter, such a recital is meaningless. If no difference exists between the lives of the Kafirs and the Muslim on earth, how can there be any difference between their lives in the hereafter? What does the Kalimah teach us then? What then is the nature of the knowledge which the Kalimah Tayyibah imparts to us? And what difference takes place between the action of a Muslim and a Kafir after acquiring this knowledge? Firstly, submission to Allah. The first thing that you learn from this Kalimah is that you are slaves of Allah and of Allah alone. Fully understand this profound truth, and you will be automatically led to the realization that in this world you must live according to the will of that being whose slave you are, because not to do so will be tantamount to rebellion against your master. Second, obedience to the Prophet. The second thing is that you learn from the Kalimah is that Muhammad, blessing and peace be on him, is the messenger of Allah. Having learned this, it immediately becomes self-evident that to grow flowers and fruits in this world instead of thorns and poisonous plants, you have to plant your garden as he has taught you. You follow his way, you will reap a fine harvest in the hereafter. But if you act against his way, you will grow thorns in this world and reap only thorns in the hereafter. Actions must accord with knowledge. When you have acquired this knowledge, it is essential that your actions should be in conformity with it. If you believe that you have to die one day, that after death there is another life, and that in that life you have to sustain yourself solely on that crop which you produce in this world before leaving it, then it is scarcely possible for you to deviate from that path shown by the Prophet, blessing and peace be on him. Why do you cultivate your field in this world? Simply because no crop will grow unless you do, and that without a crop you will die of starvation. If you had not been certain of this, if you had thought that a crop could grow without cultivation, or that you could satisfy your hunger without crops, you would never have labored to cultivate the fields. In other words, your action accorded with your knowledge. Judge your position with respect to the Kalimah in this manner, in like manner. You assert that you accept God as your master and Muhammad, blessing and peace be on him, as God's messenger. You also affirm belief in life after death. Why should then your actions run counter to Quranic teachings and the Prophet's Sunnah? Such undoubtedly is the result of weak faith. If you really have faith that your fate in the hereafter depends on your behavior in this life, you would never risk being negligent in living as God's will you to live. Only someone who does not really believe that what he is sowing will produce thorns and that this thorn will cause him harm would do such thing. You never pick up embers in your hand knowingly, because you know that they will burn. They will burn you. Only children put their hands in the fire because they do not know what will happen. Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Ya Fattah, Ya Razzaq, Ya Wahhab, Ya Ghani, Ya Mughni, Ya Qadim, Ya Daim, Ya Ahad, Ya Wahid, Ya Samad, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Hayyu, Ya Qayyum, Ya Rabb, Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram, Ya Rabb, Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram, Ya Rabb, Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram.